शास्त्रविचारणैकनिपुणौ सद्धर्मसंस्थापकौ लोकानां हितकारिणौ त्रिभुवने मान्यौ शरण्याकरौ राधाकृष्णपदारविन्दभजनानन्देन मत्तालिकौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपादकौ ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय स्वपादमूलं भजतः प्रियस्य त्यक्तान्यभावस्य हरिपरेशः विकर्म यच्चोत्पतितं कथञ्चित् धुनोति सर्वं हृदि सन्निविष्टः Om Ajnanatimirandhasya. Hare Krishna. Welcome for studying Nectar of Devotion. So last time we completed chapter 4. Devotional service surpasses liberation. We will begin with chapter 5, the purity of devotional service. The basic theme of this chapter is that how devotional service is self-sufficient and independent. It does not require support or prerequisite of any other process for either its practice or its perfection. Generally, in this world, people who take to the path of karma, jnana or yoga have many prerequisites to fulfill. For example, if somebody is into the path of karma kand, then they have to have proper time, place, circumstance, ingredients, the purity of all these items to be flawless. If they make a small mistake somewhere, they have to bear consequences. Like that Nruga story. King Nruga gave a little cow here and there charity, and that cow went into some another herd. Another time he gave a charity. It caused so much trouble. King became a lizard in next life, despite having done so much good work. Similarly, there is Jnana Kanda. In that path, we require the prerequisite of person who is contented, peaceful, renounced disposition, and high intellect. Otherwise, you can't practice jnana. On the contrary, we have Ashtanga Yoga, which is also first prerequisite is give up family life, go to jungle, practice celibacy, and then start a very rigid practice of all this yama, niyama, asana, which is very tough. On the contrary, then there is the path of Bhakti Yoga, which demands simply faith, which can be translated in our context as interest, a little interest, little attraction towards it. We can't even say that we initially have faith. We basically have some interest, something has kindled our interest, some attraction towards bhakti. And that's how we pursue it. And in the previous chapters we studied that na nirvinno na atisakto. You should not be too detached and you should not be too attached. You should be somewhere hanging in between. You are a fit candidate. And we have agreed most of us are something similar. So, the execution and perfection of devotional service does not require any material considerations, prerequisites. So this chapter will first talk of this topic, that bhakti can be performed by anybody. Then this chapter will also talk about how can we prove it. So we will provide a lot of evidence that bhakti can be practiced by anyone. And then finally, we will discuss some importance of this concept in the development of our Hare Krishna movement. How we should conduct ourselves, especially in our preaching activities, when we come in touch with people. What kind of demands we should put on them so that they take to practice of Krishna consciousness. Sometimes we are too much demanding from people without knowing the prerequisite is not that high. So somehow it has come in our system that because I am such a rigorous devotee, unless you become my type, probably you can't become a good devotee at all. So we'll talk about that also. So we have gone way ahead till chapter 5. Bhakti does not need preliminary qualification of high birth, performance of Vedic sacrifices, and Varnashrama, like other paths do. So, Bhakti is pure and free from these three requirements. Now, this discussion begins in the first paragraph by the fourth line. Rupa Goswami states that devotional service is transcendental to all material considerations. It is not limited to any particular country, class, society, or circumstance. So he quotes Bhagavatam 1:2-6. Please repeat. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahaituki apratihata Yayatma suprasidati. So the translation is very differently given here. It says, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, devotional service is transcendental and has no cause. Ahaituki. Devotional service is executed without any hope for gain. Ahaituki. And it cannot be checked by any material circumstances. Apratihata. It is open for all. Pumsam. It says no specific Indians or Americans like that. Anyone can take to it. And without any distinction. And it is the constitutional occupation, dharma, of all living entities. So, this verse states that bhakti cannot be checked by any material impediment and bhakti has no mundane cause. Bhakti sanjayate bhakti. Bhakti is the cause of bhakti, and we sorted that out in the previous background. Proji, you need to really remove it outside somewhere. I have a super allergy with that. So, immediately Prabhupada gives an example. He says, there is Lord Nityananda, who later on, first of all, he proved that bhakti can be attained by anybody. Jagai Madha is a classic example. But there were some priests who started claiming that they are descendants of Nityananda Vamsha. And they made it into bhakti can be had by only a particular class of people. They are called Jati Gosai, one of the Apasampradayas in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So they started making it as a hereditary qualification. If you are not a Jati Gosai, born in our caste, you just can't be a Gaudiya, a Vaishnava. You are inferior. So Prabhupada gets on that case and he says they exercise their artificial power for some time. By claiming this kind of connection until the Simha Guru came. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the powerful Acharya of Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, completely smashed their idea. There was a hard struggle for some time, but it has turned out successfully. And it is now correctly and practically established that devotional service is not restricted to a particular class of men. So that's first part. Then there is a second part to that same story. What Bhaktisiddhanta did, he also established that anyone who is engaged in devotional service is already at the status of being a high class Brahman. So we know that famous lecture that Bhaktisiddhanta gave in Medinipur, Brahmana versus Vaishnava. And the lecture was so powerfully loaded. In the beginning, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati glorified what is a Brahmana. First of all, he glorified the Brahmanas. What scriptures talk about Brahmanas, what kind of qualification they have in the eyes of the Lord, in the eyes of the scriptures. And all the Brahmanas sitting there, they were, of course, they don't have collars with dhoti kurtas, but they were really proud of themselves. Then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati started talking about who is a Brahmana. So he started telling a lot of qualifications. And then people started reconsidering, who am I exactly? Am I really a Brahmana by this definition? And then Bhaktisiddhanta started talking about Vaishnava and his position as given in the scriptures. And then who can become a Vaishnava? And finally very systematically proved that how Vaishnava includes Brahmana and surpasses that qualification. That presentation was so logically convincing and, so to say, emotionally also appealing, that all the people who had assembled there, they jumped up high in air, waving their turbans and everything. They started appreciating the presentation. They ran to catch the lotus feet of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And the police had tough time controlling the crowds. What did they do? They took Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in another tent and they said, you sit here. They brought a bucket and put the lotus feet of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in the water. And they collected that and went out and threw the water, sprinkling it on the head of everybody so that they are pacified. That, okay, you got the mercy of a great Vaishnava. So this was the presentation that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati gave. So, that was Brahmana being already included as a stature in the Vaishnava. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's struggle for this movement has come out successful. So, bhakti does not require any great qualification in terms of pious birth. How many of you have a pious birth? Even Brahmanas who are born in Brahminical families are born nowadays by chance. Nobody did Garbhadhana Samskara for them. Usually people are born because the contraceptive devices malfunction. They were not intended to be born. And in this kind of situation, who can claim that I have a very pious birth? But even then there are proud people. I was also one of them. Earlier used to think very high of being Brahmana means something 50 paisa thread you go around showing to people. But later on when I came to ISKCON, I understood, no way I am a Brahmana from any angle. So there was a great struggle in my home when I had to give up my so-called status of being a Brahmana till I got Brahman initiation. I shouldn't have done that way, but anyways. But the pious birth is no requirement here. And earlier we had seen the verse which says, Vyadhasya charanam dhruvasya chavayo Vidya gajendrasya ka Kubjaya kimuna marupamadhikam Kim tat sudam no dhanam Vamshah ko vidurasya yadava pater Ugrasya kim paurusham Bhaktya tushyati kevalam nacha gunair Bhakti priyo madhavaha. Very simple verse but profound. Vyadhasya acharanam ka. Vyadha means Mrugari or even Valmiki. Acharanam, the hunter named Dharma, here it says. What was his acharan? Good qualification. He was following any Vaishnava etiquettes? No background of that. Dhruvasya cha vayaha. What was the age of Dhruva? What was the age of Dhruva? 5. How many of you are elder than 5? Raise hands. Okay. You are not, huh? Yet. He is also, right? What about her? 5. So, Vidya Gajendrasya ka. Which IIT did Gajendra go? Means what education did Gajendra have? He was a low-born elephant. Kubja ya kimu nama rupam. Kubja का नाम अच्छा है ना रूप अच्छा है. Kubja basically means kubad wali. So what can we talk about more than that? Adhikam kim tat sudamno dhanam. What was the wealth of Sudama Brahman? He can't even declare bankruptcy because you have to have a bank or some money somewhere which got lost or something. This is just nothing. Vamshah ko Vidurasya. What was the Vamsha of Vidura? He was born as a Dasi Putra, but he was such a great devotee. Yadavapati, the king of Yadus, Ugrasya, Ugrasen Maharaj. Kim Paurusham. What was his prowess? He was always subordinate to somebody or other. When Kamsa came in power, Ugrasena was mandlik to him. And eventually when Krishna freed him from the prison house, even then he was actually dependent on Krishna for his sovereignty and freedom. Krishna actually supported him as the main king, but he was always subordinate in that sense. But no Paurusha. But what are the qualifications of each of them? Bhaktya tushyati kevalam. They pleased by their bhakti, Lord Madhava, nacha gunair, not by their material qualifications. Because bhakti priyo Madhavaha. Lord can be attracted only by devotional service. He is very fond of devotional service. So this is just to say how nothing matters in terms of age, education, gender, beauty, paurush, and great birth. Simply devotional service is sufficient. So that is one evidence. Of course, that's not given here, but I got excited, so I anyway showed it. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati fought hard to establish pure devotional service as open to all. And similarly, Srila Prabhupada also had to fight. When he brought his dancing white elephants to India, some Indian politicians, they were afraid that these are some CIA men or something. They tried to put some hindrance. And some typical Smartha Brahmanas or others in India who are rigid about their caste culture and everything. They said, what kind of sannyasi is this? We know that famous story in Vrindavan. One of the pujaris of a Vrindavan temple, I won't name the temple, said to one of the devotees, you are doing this bhakti, chanting Hare Krishna, very nice. If you continue distributing books, chanting Hare Krishna like this, in next birth you will be born as a pujari in Vrindavan like me. I bless you. And the devotee felt so happy. Wow, wonderful. What a benediction I got. So he went and told Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada became very annoyed. He said, you go back and tell him that if you continue worshipping your deity like this in Vrindavan Dham, in your next life you'll be born as a book distributor in some American city and distribute the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in your next birth. So this mentality is so strong, especially we all as Indians, we really have that, in us. दिखने में चमड़े से खून से तो भारतीय है, मेंटालिटी कूट कूट के पाश्चात्य है अंदर. Still we are proud that we are superior to those other devotees who are not born in India and they have not got this culture. Sometimes we tend to think like that. Like typically, one Brahmana, he was telling Prabhupada, I think it was which Mataji who recited the Ishopanishad when Prabhupada told her? No. I'm forgetting her name. So this was in Jaipur, and some Brahmanas had gathered, and Prabhupada said, don't you know, my disciples, they even know Sanskrit. And he called this Mataji and said, recite Ishopanishad. And she only knew 4 shlokas, not all the 19 verses. So she started reciting them. No? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Ishavasya. And she was sweating because she knew after 4 I don't know anything, and Prabhupada has given them a big promise. So as soon as she completed the 4th verse, Prabhupada said, that's enough. And then she felt really relieved. Prabhupada said, just see. And still that devotee, whoever that person in the audience, he complained, but Swamiji, their pronunciation is not correct. But their renunciation is perfect. Prabhupada said, pronunciation may not be correct, but the renunciation that they have shown to serve Krishna, giving up every other consideration in life, just to be here and practice bhakti, that is perfect. So in this way, Prabhupada always stood by his disciples. Although they were apparently criticized or looked down upon by the so-called proud Indians. And we should also do the same. We should not tolerate any Vaishnavas belittling or blaspheming. So this is purity of devotional service. Now Prabhupada goes further about talking about himself. It is on the basis of his position, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's position, that anyone can now become a Gaudiya Vaishnava from any part of the world or any part of the universe. Prabhupada is really enthusiastic about things in life. If given a chance, Prabhupada would have surely gone to other planetary systems and preached. I am very, very confident about it. Anyone who is a pure Vaishnava is situated transcendentally, and therefore the highest qualification in the material world, namely the mode of goodness, has already been achieved by such a person. So, on the authority of our spiritual master, we are claiming members from all sections of Western countries. The so-called Brahmanas claim that one who is not born in Brahman family cannot receive the sacred thread and cannot become a high-grade Vaishnava. But we do not accept such a theory, because it is not supported by Rupa Goswami nor by the strength of various scriptures. So, sometimes this mentality creeps in us, especially in ISKCON. Sometimes devotees think that, oh, this spiritual master is born American, he's born Canadian, something, and this is born Indian. Maybe this is a better version of being a Vaishnava. Creed. Offensive mentality. Similarly, we also tend to think of devotees who don't know much of Sanskrit or cannot pronounce things properly in our Vedic culture. Sometimes we tend to think that that's not such a great thing. If they are a spiritual master or they are a teacher, they should be knowing these things. That kind of mentality comes. Instead of paying attention to what tattva are they enunciating, we tend to appreciate the externalities more. So we should be careful. Now comes Padma Puran. Srila Rupa Goswami specifically mentions that every man has the birthright to accept devotional service. There was one famous politician in Pune, Lokmanya Tilak. Swarajya ha माझा जन्मसिद्ध अधिकार आहे आणि तो मी मिळविनच. This is a very famous statement of his. Independence is my birthright and I will anyhow gain it. So he just missed it. Swarajya nahi, bhakti, devotional service. That's the only one word to be replaced. Bhakti ha माझा जन्मसिद्ध अधिकार आहे. नित्य सिद्ध कृष्ण प्रेमा. साध्य कबू नाही. So we should also know that this is birthright, and the right of birth is not needed. It's birthright of every living entity, but nobody needs any prerequisite of high birth. Padma Puran. Padma Puran says, my dear king, everyone has the right to execute devotional service, just as he has the right to take early bath in the month of Magh. Now, you may not connect to that one so much, but in the Vedic culture, there is some concept called Magha Snanam. People used to go to holy places and take a bath in any of the holy rivers, or in the month of Magha especially. You see, gopis go and they bathe in the December, January month to have Krishna as their husband, performing their vrata. So, this was called Magha Snanam. But what happens? When anybody goes to that water body, there is no consideration of he's a Shudra, he's a Brahmana, all that. In the Magha Snana, everybody is allowed. Just like that. The example is given that anybody has the right for practicing Bhakti Yoga. Sometimes we are now in a different culture. So we have to clear the cultural concept in the background. Now comes Skanda Puran. There is one country called Mayuradhwaja. The lower caste people who are considered less than Shudras in that country are also initiated in the Vaishnava cult of devotional service. And when they are properly dressed with tilak on their bodies and beads in their hands, on their necks, they appear to be coming from Vaikuntha. In fact, they look so beautiful that immediately they surpass the ordinary Brahmanas. Okay, so this is second proof that Vaishnavism is open to all. Let's not make our Krishna consciousness movement restricted to few and not to others. I'm going to throw a controversial question here and let you go with it. Should gay people be allowed to take initiation in ISKCON? Based on current discussion that we are having. They don't follow the four regulative principle the way we have it of no illicit sex. According to scriptures, man-man relationship or whatever is not normal. We see in the beginning of creation when Lord Brahma had some progeny and they were running behind him only, the men. And that was the origin of gay culture in the universe. And Brahma ran away from them. And then he took shelter of Lord and those demons were destroyed by the Lord. So that's the background. And here we are talking about purity of devotional service, that there are no material impediments for accepting Bhakti Yoga. What should be done about such people? Are they barred from Bhakti? You're all theological application personalities. Brahmanas means you should have the ability to apply all that you learn to particular contexts in the society. So think about that for a while. Anyways, we continue. The third evidence. Vaishnava automatically becomes a Brahmana. The idea is supported by Sanatan Goswami in his book Hari Bhakti Vilas. Please repeat. Yatha Kanchanatam Yati Kasyam Rasavidhanataha. I'm sorry. I always forget to project things. Anyways, I'm not getting. No, I don't know. It is quoted here or not exactly. No, here also it is not quoted somehow. Anyways, Kansyam Rasa Vidhanataha. Kanchanatam means the quality of gold. Kasya means bronze. Kansyam Rasa Vidhanataha. There is an alchemy process by which when you mix mercury and bronze in certain proportion together and do some alchemy process on it, that bronze turns into gold. Interested? Janmashtami fundraising time is close by. I think you have some bronze at home. Don't try. Tell you one more shocking thing. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in another commentary, he says that there were Brahmanas in Vedic culture. They would consume bronze and mercury in liquid form, and when they would urinate gold. Hare Krishna. That's just a side information for you. FYI. So it says here that there is a way to make a reaction between mercury and bronze by which they turn into gold through the alchemy process. In the same manner, by the process of initiation, Diksha, a crude person can be transformed into unalloyed pure devotee of Lord Vishnu. through the process of Diksha. So, ideally, when we take initiation, effect similar to that of Lord Chaitanya is supposed to take place when he took initiation from Ishwarapuri. You know that pastime, right? He goes to Gaya and Ishwarapuri, he serves him, asks for initiation. And the day when he is given initiation, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Lord Chaitanya manifests Bhava Bhakti straight away. There is no in between for him. Like we are doing sadhana and hoping someday something will happen. So that's his transformation. And then he becomes so mad, chanting. He goes to his guru. Kiba mantra dila gosai, kiba tara bal, japite man hoila pagal. He says, what kind of mantra have you given me? The moment I start chanting, tears start flowing from my eyes, hairs stand on end. I don't know what ecstasy it produces. I have become completely mad. And hearing these words, my spiritual master said, well done, my boy. I declare that you have attained the perfection of this process. Just continue chanting this mantra and give it to others. So that's the instruction he gets. Now, most of us after initiation don't get Bhava Bhakti. So don't feel so bad about it. Even Sadhana Bhakti is ecstatic. So, where are we? How the transformation is supposed to take place at the time of initiation, just by coming in touch with a bona fide guru and Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The alchemy process is supposed to take place. Crude person should get transformed into a flower like Vaishnava. Prabhupada concludes that a bona fide spiritual master under the guidance of authorities can turn anyone to the Vaishnava cult so that naturally he may come to the topmost position of a Brahmana. Okay. Now comes a warning. What is a warning? If a person is properly initiated by a guru, bona fide guru, he should not think that simply by acceptance of initiation, his business is finished. One still has to follow the rules and regulations very carefully. If after accepting the spiritual master and being initiated, one does not follow the rules and regulations of bhakti, then he is again fallen. So in this connection, in the next chapter, we will start studying the 64 items of devotional service. How do you execute bhakti in practice, in behavior? So there are 64 items, of which the first 20 and the last 5 are called mandatory practices or minimal qualification. We will see them in due course of time. So those cannot be given up at any point of time. One must be very vigilant to remember that he is the part and parcel of transcendental body of Krishna. Wow. That it is his duty as a part and parcel to give service to the whole Krishna. If we do not render service to Krishna, then again we fall down. In other words, simply becoming initiated does not elevate one to the position of high-class Brahman. One has to discharge the duties and follow the regulative principles very rigidly. So, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he sufficiently put forward this point during his Leela when he went and started hearing from Ramananda Rai. Ramananda Rai was Grihastha and a Shudra, government official. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a sannyasi and a high class Brahman. Mishras are like ultra. So, still Lord Chaitanya sat submissively and heard from him because he was a Rasadnya, Rasika, who exactly understood the science of devotional service. And there Lord Chaitanya even says this, Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Kene Noy, Jai Krishna Tattva Veta, Sai Guru Hoy. You may not be a sannyasi, Brahmana, whatever, Shudra Kene Noy, you can be even a Shudra. But as long as you know Krishna Tattva, Sai Guru Hoy, he can initiate others. So these are the claims by Lord himself about what is the standard of becoming a devotee. Now, another example. Srila Rupa Goswami says that if one regularly discharges devotional service, there will be no question of a fall down. I like that statement very much. Apna kaam roj ka roj karo. Just like 3 times we eat, 2 times we bathe, we continue. In the same manner, we continue with our morning program, 16 rounds. I was recently preparing an article based on one Satsurup Maharaja's book, Vaishnava Behavior. And there he says there are these 5 essential things a devotee is supposed to do. Stay in the association of devotees, morning program and deities service in some form, chanting 16 good rounds, studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita regularly, and engaging in practical devotional service. And 6th one, avoiding sinful activities and offenses. This constitutes what we call, if we do this, there is no question of fall down. Now someone may say, but what if circumstantially there is a fall down? Should I then take to some prayaschitta? Prayaschitta means atonement as prescribed in the Karmakand section of the Vedas. So the answer is no. The topic here changes. Rituals of purification. There is no need of prayaschitta. Even if by mistake somebody falls, just practice devotional service more strictly. So, this is the mystery of the Vaishnava devotional cult, that one need not take to any other process. Again, this is elaborated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. There was one devotee by the name Subuddhi Rai, born in a very good family. Somehow or other in those days in India, during the Muslim rule, there was a very simple way of converting Hindus into Muslims. If a Hindu by chance ate something that was cooked by a Muslim, or if a Muslim just sprinkled some water from his water pot on the body of a Hindu, or there was some exchange of some kind of give and take between the two, this thing, immediately the so-called Hindu society will ostracize that person, saying that now you are contaminated, you are no more, you are in touch with the mlecha, you have lost your caste, so to say. So this Subuddhi Rai somehow became a victim. He was earlier working for he was a very rich man, and he had a servant who was a Muslim boy who served in his place. And one day he made some mistakes, so he had beaten him very severely. And later on, this boy went on to become a very great king. And one day, while he was with his wife, she got to see on his back some marks, and she asked him, what is this? And he told, earlier I had a master, and he had beaten me up with a cane, and those are the marks. But he was a nice master. It's not like he beat me just for, I really committed some mistakes. The wife became upset, how dare he beat you, you are the king. So now you have to convert him to Muslim. So because he was a henpecked husband, he first tried convincing, but it didn't work. So he finally decided to call Subuddhi Rai, and he made him get contaminated in some form. Now Subuddhi Rai, he lost his caste according to the Hindu society. So then he went back to some of the Brahmanas in various holy places, and he said, I have lost my caste, I had to go through this. What is the atonement? Prayaschitta for me, so that I can come back into the original thing. Some Brahmana told, you have to drink molten iron. Say, what is this? Another fellow told, okay, not iron, you have to drink molten ghee. He said, I will die. They said, exactly. While drinking molten ghee, cow ghee, when you die, this body which you give up, which is already contaminated, in next birth you get a body which is fit for being a Hindu again. That's a prayaschitta. So Subuddhi Rai kind of lost his hope on all this kind of prayaschitta that was being told around. And finally he met Lord Chaitanya, fortunately. And Lord Chaitanya told him, just chant Hare Krishna. All this stupid stuff is not needed to get converted back into. So, in fact, majority of Hindus became Muslims because of this kind of, what you call, sankuchit, very constricted understanding, of who can become purified, who cannot become purified. And this was a major thing in the days of the yore. So, Prabhupada says, no other prayaschitta, chant Hare Krishna, and if you commit some mistake, we kind of, as they say, push back a little, gather our strength in terms of regulated devotional service becoming stronger, and then we come back again in our service. That's the way to deal with our fall down. Please repeat. Bhumau skhalita padanam bhumireva valambanam namajata aparadhanam tameva sharanam prabhu. Simple Sanskrit. While chanting holy names, I commit offenses and I fall. Namajata aparadhanam. When I commit offenses, tam eva sharanam prabhu. But I take shelter of the same holy name and continue walking ahead. Just like a child who's trying to walk, falls on the ground, takes shelter of the same ground and gets up and walks again. So that's our mood in devotional service. So from this point onwards, the discussion changes to how bhakti is superior to varnashrama dharma and what is the connection between the two. Is varnashrama dharma prerequisite for practicing pure devotional service? So just now we saw purification through Vedic rituals is not needed. There is one last verse here, Uddhava being told 11:21-2. Sve sve adhikare ya nishtha sa gunaha parikirtitaha. Yeah, this is it. Viparyayastu tad doshas syat ubhayor esha nishchayaha. This is a very beautiful line. Sve sve adhikare ya nishtha sa gunaha parikirtitaha. How can I know which do's and don'ts to follow in my spiritual life? It depends on what is our eligibility. Adhikar. So if you have this level of adhikar, and you develop nishtha for do's and don'ts that are to be followed at that level of adhikar, sa gunaha parikirtitaha. Just like when someone comes new and we ask him, so how many rounds you are chanting? 1 round. He says, wow, 1 round. Devos, the devotees bring Mahaprasad and give him. And he says, wow, 1 round seems quite a bit here. They value like anything. And somebody like us, we meet and so Prabhuji, how is your chanting going? Struggling, or whatever. Devotees have typical answers. Then devotees may say, for us there is no Mahaprasad, right? For 16 rounds that we are chanting. And they say, Hare Prabhu, what is this? And you may say, well, Prabhu, when I came new devotee, you gave me so much Maha, now you don't even look at me, I'm chanting 16 rounds every day. They say, that is swesve adhikar hai ya nishtha, sa guna, abhi tumhara adhikar upar hai. Abhi 16 mala nahi, 16 mala subhe. Or whatever other considerations. So that's the criteria. Sa gunaha parikirtitaha. If one sticks to devotional service and is conducted by regulative principles given by authorities and acharyas, that is the best qualification. So at our stage we should have somebody to consult. Can I put my marker here right now at this level? They say yes, that's a good one. They will not allow us to lower down or too much do austerities in bhakti yoga. That becomes qualification. Okay, so now we begin the Varnashrama discussion. This is the first verse in the series. Please repeat. First canto. Tyaktva swadharmam charanambujam harer bhajanna pakvo thapate tato yadi yatra kvava bhadrama bhudamushya kim ko vartha apto abhajatam swadharmataha. So, even if one does not execute his specific occupational duty, Varnashram, but immediately takes direct shelter of the lotus feet of Hari, Krishna, there will be no fault on his part. And in all circumstances, his position is secure. Now someone may say, but what if, he falls down? Even if by some bad association, he falls down while executing devotional service, or if he doesn't finish the complete course of devotional service and dies untimely, still he is not at a loss. A person who is simply discharging his occupational duty in Varnashram, however, with no Krishna consciousness, practically does not gain the true benefit of human life. So who fell down because of bad association? Kyaja Mila, Bharat Maharaj, even Chitraketu, and Narad Muni in the earlier role as a Gandharva, Upabarahana. But nothing was lost in the practice of bhakti. We have the famous 2.48. Neha bhikramanaashosti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpamapi asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Little bit also can make you secure. Real insurance. So this is the first evidence how devotional service is not dependent on Varnashrama, or being well situated in Varnashrama is not a necessary prerequisite for discharging pure devotional service. And we have many examples of that also. People who are not at all in Varnashram but practice pure devotional service. Now comes Rishabhdev, the next one. Persons engaged in fruitive activities are repeatedly accepting birth and death. Until they develop a loving feeling for Vasudeva, there will be no question of getting out of this stringent laws of material nature. That's a very long verse. Evam manaha karma vasham prayunkte avidyaya atmani upadhiyamane pritirna yavat mai vasudeve na muchyate deha yogena tavat. Although he may do everything else very nicely, but if he does not develop the sense of affinity for Lord Vasudeva, na muchyate deha yogena tavat, till then he will not be freed from bondage of material body. Now comes 11:11:32. This is Lord talking to Uddhava. Please repeat. Ajñāyaiva guṇān doṣān mayādishtānapi svakān dharmān santyajya yas sarvān māṁ bhajet satu sattamaha. Please read. My dear Uddhav.
My dear Uddhav, any person who takes shelter of me in complete surrender and follows my instructions, giving up all occupational duties, is to be considered the first-class man. In this statement of Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is understood that people who are generally attracted to philanthropic, ethical, moral, altruistic, political and social welfare activities may be considered nice men only in the calculation of the material world. From Srimad Bhagavatam and other authentic Vedic scriptures, we learn further that if a person simply acts in Krishna consciousness and discharges devotional service, he is considered to be far, far better situated than all of those persons engaged in philanthropic, ethical, moral, altruistic and social welfare activities.
See, sometimes we do get impressed by the work done by some of these people. And we can take inspiration in terms of how through our bhakti can we also create a impact in serving the society. But to think that I am missing out on some kind of offering to the society because now I took to devotional service. I can't do the way people are doing things around. Or sometimes to even think that what they are doing is sometimes superior, than this bhakti, that we are doing. This is considered improper. Now comes another classic verse, 11:5:41. Devarshi bhutapta nrunam pitrunam न किङ्करो नायं ऋणी च राजन् सर्वात्मनाय शरणं शरण्यं गतो मुकुन्दं परिहृत्य कर्तम्. Karabhajan Muni told Maharaj Nimi, what?
My dear king, if someone gives up his occupational duties as they are prescribed for the different varnas and ashrams, but takes complete shelter, surrendering himself unto the lotus feet of the Lord, such a person is no more a debtor, nor has he any obligation to perform the different kinds of activities we render to the great sages, ancestors, living entities, and family and society members. Nor has he any need to bother executing the 5 kinds of yajnas, sacrifices, for becoming free from sinful contamination. Simply by discharging devotional service, he is free from all kinds of obligation.
So Deva, demigods, Rishi, sages like Vyasadeva who compiled the Vedas, Bhuta, in general living entities like cows and whatever we draw from the animal society for our maintenance. Apta, family and friends and relatives. Nrunam, the king who runs the government properly so that we can practice whatever material spiritual activities. Pitrunam, our forefathers through which we have some ancestral property and facility. Na kinkara nayam runi. We are neither needed to render specifically service to these personalities, or we are not indebted to them in any way, provided sarvatmana, with wholeheartedness, yaha sharanam sharanyam, one who goes and takes shelter of the supremely worthy personality of taking shelter. Gato mukundam parirutya kartam. Such a person is not an indebtor for them. Now in our case, our bhakti is little half-hearted. So in proportion to our half-heartedness, the runas are in action. So we have to be a little careful about certain verses that we study. At the same time, the way to pay back the indebtedness is through devotional service. Many times we may wonder that those people who loved us as we were growing, now they are passed away. What can we pay their debt? What can we do for them materially? But if we become good devotees, then their emancipation is also assured. That's our service to them. So in this way, through devotional service, we can pay back all other debts. Like Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya, they even delivered their spiritual masters. Because they rendered such a devotional service. This Achyuta Prekshana, Madhvacharya's sannyas guru, and there was Ramanujacharya's. Or in case of Prahlad, he delivered his father who was a demon, Hiranyakashipu, ancestor. So in this way we can give example for each of them, that how a devotee by his bhakti paid off, so to say, the indebtedness that he had for these personalities.
So continue doing Shraddha also for Puji because that level is not that high.
Yeah, our Shraddha that we perform is for 2 purposes. Number 1, to give direct devotional sukruti to the soul that has passed away. So our Shraddha style is not the typical Karmakand style, it is actually Bhakti style. We can discuss that another time, how we should perform Shraddha. And secondly, our Shraddha performance is intended to set a good example in the society that other people should do Shraddha properly. If they see that sometimes high class, well situated devotees, they don't do this, then already common people are in, so-called irresponsible mood. They will not do that. And that's why for Grihastha, certain functions or certain samskaras are mandatory. Although they are not necessarily part of Bhakti Yoga, they still do it because it sets a good example, and also it gives some way to add devotional credits in the lives of people that come in touch with. Like recently our Piyush Prabhu got married, And the way his mother had planned the marriage, my God, it was basically a Sukruti increasing program, for the relatives, that participated. Subtly, she had arranged everything in such a way that whoever participated in the marriage, his Bhakti Unmukh Sukruti bank account has become enriched, without whether they know it or not. So she's a strong preacher. त्याला हाडाचा preacher म्हणतात मराठीमध्ये. Strong. And they were describing to me what all they did, how they did it. I said, my God, I think you can make I was telling them a operations manual, with protocol setting, how marriages should be conducted in the Hare Krishna society. Make sure that nobody is not inundated with devotional service. They have to drown in the flood of devotional service, but without harassing them, troubling them. So this is how devotees are, very intelligent. We should also in the same manner arrange for these samskaras at our place. If you want to read more on this, you can read Jaiva Dharma. Bhakti Vinod Thakur talks elaborately on how Vaishnava should perform Shraddha. So that's additional. So, and then Prabhupada goes on giving example for each of them. First he gives example of Vyasadeva. We should study Vedas. Then he says Shankaracharya, Gautama Muni, Narada Muni. So we should take advantage of their knowledge. So after studying Prabhupada books, we should also study the 6 Goswamis. We should study the Shad Darshan. We should study the other Vedic literatures. And see them through Prabhupada's spectacles. So, how much to study? Just to, pay back the debt. Anyways, at least study Prabhupada books, if nothing. Then further indebted to demigods like Indra Puja, Govardhan, Brajavasis were wanting to perform. But by one stroke of devotional service, Prabhupada says, if someone gives up all obligations, simply surrenders to Krishna, he is no longer a debtor. So don't worry what will happen to your Shani Puja, Guruvar for who? Datta. Shanivar for Shani, and then Mangalvar for Shiva. Yeah, so whatever. You earlier knew it, I think now you have forgotten kind of. So which var for whom? So we don't need to, if you become good devotees. Now Prabhupada finally comes to the Bhagavad Gita conclusion. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. Someone may think because he is surrendering to Supreme Personality of Godhead, he will not be able to perform all his other obligations. But the Lord says repeatedly, don't hesitate. Don't consider that because you are giving up all other engagements, there will be some flaw in your life. Don't think like that. I will give you all protection. That is the assurance of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. In one time our brahmachari class, one devotee, senior devotee, he said that if you become a brahmachari by following this verse, Tyaktva swadharmam charanambujam harir bhajan apakva, and then if you go back from brahmachari life due to some circumstances, then the duration of time in which you didn't serve your parents, you get reaction for that, for acting irresponsibly. You get a karma for having done such a thing. And my God, I was so disturbed after hearing that, because I really hear classes with some personal connection there. So I didn't say anything. It was not sitting in my heart very much. So after that, Radhesham Prabhu came and I asked him, that devotee said like this in the class. Radhesham Prabhu came so upset. He said, is it? Then I will go and ask Krishna, that is this your way of treating people who come to you? That you encourage them to fully give themselves to you, and due to whatever mischief, what happened, if they fell off from their position, then you nicely fry them in the hellish frying pans, for that fall down. Although they had surrendered in a good, so to say, tone. And then we went to ask another sannyasi the same question. And he showed this one. Ma shuchaha, ma shuchaha, ma shuchaha. Krishna is saying again and again, don't fear, don't worry, don't think 100 times about this. Just do it. Whatever in future will come to you, aham tva sarva papyebhyo mokshayishami. Krishna is saying that assurance. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhaktaha pranashyati. So all these assurances that Krishna repeatedly gives are for that purpose. Again, the point is here, we should not be irresponsible in any dimension of life. Not that irresponsibly give up home and start staying in temple and do nothing in devotional service also much. And then again, bloop, as they call it in ISKCON. Bloop. Just like you take a stone and put it in the water, bloop. It goes down. So there's a term for fall down. ISKCON lingo. Oh, devotee कहता है वो bloop हो गया प्रभु जी. What do you mean bloop? He blooped. That's an ISKCON lingo of saying it. So we should not be of that category. So we were responsible earlier, whatever we wanted to take care of parents and everything. Now we came to bhakti. Here we are responsible. We don't waste time. We do every day sadhana very rigorously. Do whatever the authority says in the temple to render service. Why should we fear? Tomorrow if something goes wrong, Hare Krishna. Krishna should take care. But we should offer our best in the course of our service. The point I'm trying to make is, none of us should feel hesitant when we sometimes tend to do this kind of things. Ab tera kya hoga re kaliya? तूने तो भक्ति छोड़ दिया. So it's not like that. It's well assured. Everything will be taken care of. That is the assurance of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Now comes Agastya Samhita. It seems Rupa Goswami also reads all the books given by the Acharyas. And he's just not telling us to read. Agastya Samhita. I first time heard that name after coming to ISKCON. As the regulative principles of scripture are not required by liberated person, so the ritualistic principles of Vedas, Vedic supplements, are also not required for a person duly engaged in the service of Lord Ramachandra. Because Agastya is a devotee of Ram. So Prabhupada immediately says, or Krishna. Are already so, Prabhupada just doesn't miss the beat, ever. Whatever might be going on with any acharya in his life. But Prabhupada is always with us in our current context. He makes sure that. Anyways. Now comes last quote for the day, Karabhajana Muni. Again, this is the verse which I recited in the beginning and I really want to by-heart it. I want you to by-heart this. Swapadamulam bhajatah priyasya tyaktanya bhavasya hari pareshaha vikarma yachotpatitam kathanchit dhunoti sarvam hrudi sannivishtaha. My dear king, a person who has given up the worship of the demigods or corporate giants and has completely concentrated his energy in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has become very, very dear to the Lord. Bhajatah priyasya. By his devotional service, Swapada Moolam Bhajataha, worshipping the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, he has become dear. As such, if by chance or mistake he does something which is forbidden, there is no need for him to perform any purificatory ceremonies. Vikarma yacha utpathitam kathanchit. Somehow he performs some vikarma. He does not need to undergo any purificatory ceremonies because the Lord is situated within his heart. He takes compassion for the devotee's accidental mistake and corrects him from within. Dhunoti sarvam. Hrudi sannivishtaha. The Lord is sitting in the heart and is observing the activities of that person. And whatever kalmash came in between, he cleanses it off and again puts him back on the path of bhakti. So, it is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita in many places that the Supreme Personality of Godhead takes a special interest in his devotees and declares emphatically that nothing can cause his devotees to fall down. He is always protecting them. All these verses, Neha Bikarma Nashosti, Teshamaham Samudharta, Murtyu Samsara Sagarat, Name Bhaktaha Pranashyati, Kshipram Bhavati Dharmatma, Shashvat Shantim Nigachati, Kaunteya Pratya. And also Apichet Suduracharaha, Bhajate Bam Ananya Bhak, Sadhureva Samantavyaha, Samyak Vyavasito Hisa. So many verses in Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada is not quoting all of them, but he just kind of putting it across. So, the conclusion is that Bhakti Yoga is totally independent, self-sufficient, and no material impediments can stop its execution. So that's the discussion. Now coming to this discussion that we started off with Varnashram. Varnashram is to harness the modes. We are already into Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and we want to transcend them. So Varnashrama typically helps to utilize the modes to transcend them. Whatever our Swabhava, according to whatever our Vritti, and then our Karma, our psychophysical nature, our inclinations, and our actions or prescribed duties. They are so given in the Vedas that by following Varnashram, we gradually overcome the influence of the modes on us. In that context, although Varnashrama is according to our Guna and Karma, and Bhakti is Gunan Samatityaitan, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, Mam Chayo Avyabhicharena Bhakti Yogena Sevate, Sa Gunan Samatityaitan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Then why did Srila Prabhupada say that 50% of my work is undone or unaccomplished? When he said that I have not yet established proper Varnashrama within even ISKCON society. Forget about the rest of the world. If Varnashrama is not that important, after all, then why should the founder of our movement say that 50% of my work is unfinished? I should have established Varnashrama. Why? Okay, so we are not those devotees that are described earlier. We are not in the category of all these descriptions that are given here. Very high class type of Uttama Kanishtha, so to say, even if they are Kanishtha. They are like Tyaktva Swadharmam, Charanam Bhujam Harer. So sometimes we don't exactly fall into that category and we need the Varnashrama support. Yes. Any other answer?
If you want to change, if you want to help society at large, everyone might not be ready to.
Interesting. He's saying maybe we are able to do pure devotional practices immediately, but the rest of the society cannot suddenly follow this. They need a system by which they can gradually come up to the mark. And for them, we have to set also an example. So that's one of the reasons we should try and establish Varnashrama properly.
Somebody needs devotional service by any chance, and he has the ashram framework.
In case somebody suffered a fall down, he will have a Varnashrama framework which will act like a safety net. Instead of letting him go down the gutter in sinful life, he will still continue in some level of standards of purity because he is well taken care of materially in that situation.
Form a community.
Ours is International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Prabhupada kuda International People for Krishna Consciousness. Something like that. Society means Varnashrama Dharma. So of course, when we go to spiritual world, there is no such conception of Varnashram. It's not that Uddhava is a Kshatriya there or Narad Muni is a sannyasi. That's not the mode. Modus operandi is not like that. But in this world, these are important considerations. Any other?
Also, I think in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna that you have to follow your spiritual practices, but it doesn't mean that you totally renounce and go and sit somewhere and not do your occupation. We have
Okay.
to follow.
So, Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha. So that's the typical path prescribed for everyone. Think of Krishna, which means practice Krishna consciousness, and Yudhyacha means do your prescribed duties in Varnashram. Yes? We are talking here about Daiva Varnashram. Our Varnashram is not the typical Varnashram of the Vedic culture. There is Asuri Varnashram, like Ravana was a Brahmana, but purpose is to kill Vishnu. Follow the Brahminical standard such a way nicely. They are also aware, these Asuras, that if you follow the standards of Brahminical culture, that gives you so much power. You know. So that is Asura Varnashrama, Asuri Varnashram. Then there is the Vedic Varnashram, which is often the clue is there of Vishnu Bhakti, but the activities of Varnashram are performed for the sake of Varnashram, at max coming to the level of Nishkam Karma Yoga. And then there is Daiva Varnashram, which is what we practice in ISKCON. For us, our Varnashram is secondary and our Bhakti is primary. If our Guru tells us, clean up toilet, bathroom, like a Shudra, we will go and do it. Happily do it. So Guru tells us, go do fund collection. Janmashtami has come. We go and, make some fundraising. Vaishya type activity. Guru tells us, do temple administration. Become whatever post position, president, vice president. I say, okay, we'll do this. And Guru tells us, okay, now teach Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita to others. That's a Brahminical activity. So we will do that also. Sometimes a brahmachari, morning he does Brahminical deity worship, daytime he does administration, fundraising, and does toilet, bathroom cleaning, maha cleaning in the ashram. One day only 4 varna ashram, everything covered. So where is the question of not following? The idea is the Guru's instruction is primary. So for us, that we consider as sacred in our life. I think you gave such fantastic answers to this question. Varnashrama also promotes simple living, high thinking, rather than simply living hardly thinking life of modern technology. So we should try and establish Varnashrama despite all these statements that we heard, and also practice it and propagate it for others. At the same time, we should not get overwhelmed with Varnashram. There is another wave sometimes in devotees' society where the talk of Varnashram, education and ... allied fields becomes so dominant that bhakti goes somewhere in the background. I have seen personally with my eyes good devotees, practicing devotees initiated. They got into some field like this called as fringe field. Sanskrit, Jyotish, Ayurveda, this, that. And gradually their taste in bhakti reduced, and their following of Guru's instructions in terms of standard morning program, 16 good rounds the first thing in the morning, those kind of things went somewhere in the background. And what became prominent is that one pursuit, that they developed. Okay, I have to do this. Of course, they may say that I am doing it for Prabhupada, for ISKCON. But then there is a risk that we may sometimes lose track of what is the priority. So we should be careful of either extremes. One is to reject Varnashram, saying that, I am a Taktva Swadharmam Charanam Bhuje, that kind of devotee. Another is to become Varnashrama follower prominently than that of a Bhakti yogi, Bhakti follower. Any comments or questions?
Actually, we have a hand-holding system for Puji ISKCON.
Yes.
Like we should keep holding that hand like a child holds father's hand, irrespective of age actually. So nobody will fall down.
Yes.
Just keep holding somebody's hand in fact and don't leave it.
Good. Have good Shiksha Diksha Gurus. Hold their dhoti, hand, whatever you can. And walk with sturdy convictions in spiritual life.
The question that you asked in between about they should be allowed or not. Just the thought came to me, the spontaneous answer is the Lord says that He will provide what we lack and preserve what we have. So what we lack, maybe Lord could correct it.
Yes, the question was about should they be given initiation. Nobody is barring them from practicing chanting Hare Krishna or even other studying scriptures, the devotional activities. But should they be given Brahman initiation? Or do I...
Come to a point of initiation only when they follow the 4 regulated principles.
Yeah, but what if they say that we will follow 4 regulated principles, but man will stay together?
But I think it's not endorsed in our culture that
Yeah, so I'm leaving you with a question. I don't want to give you It's not that always I will give you answers. You figure it out. So there are many things like this in bhakti which are not, you really need at least vruddha seva, some kind of service to superiors to develop that wisdom. We also need some experience, practical experience in preaching field. Like you go all over the world and see what's going on where in the world. Then you understand things, oh, I am sitting like a frog in the well thinking of this is bhakti. But you go outside and see, oh my God, bhakti has such a vast application. Another thing you need is also your own touch with Paramatma in the heart through your pure sadhana. Only then you can answer these kind of questions. You know, it's not very easy always.
The protection from sinful reactions is in proportion to surrender or any neophyte devotees? Like,
Yeah, proportional to surrender.
have sinful reactions.
Correct. Yeah, proportional to our surrender, Krishna pardons our sins. Just like at the time of Diksha, what is our bhavana of Atma Samarpan to Krishna's mission?
Talking about pure devotion,
That much our bad karma is nullified.
that means he's talking about pure devotional service here. Means when he's saying Mash,
Yeah, wholehearted devotional service. In our context, pure does not necessarily mean Uttama Bhakti, the Uttam Bhakti. Pure in our context means willingness to follow Guru's instructions, come what may. That's our context. So Guru may say to us, okay, you chant 12 rounds at 8 a.m. in the morning and 4 rounds you finish by 7 p.m. To do that is our definition of surrender. Okay. So sometimes we don't have to fry ourselves up, over certain Uttama Bhakti marks. We have to just have a consultational personality and follow that instruction that this is the standard for me, and if I live by that, that is proper. Sve sve adhikare ya nishtha sagunaha parikirtita. That also constitutes proper discharge of devotional service. Okay, thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.